What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Cinema Royale and another week with our weak sauce intro that I haven't changed yet. So, we're still there.
I would do the intros, but I can't hear the music the way you can. So.
Yeah, we got to figure that out. I mean, we've kind of been we restarted, I guess, in a new kind of format, Cinema Royale. And we haven't really sat down to change a lot. It's been going pretty well, so we always have some bumps in technical stuff when we start. So once it starts going, we don't want to break anything. But I think it's time we review some of this stuff.
Seems super bright in my room today. What is going on?
It actually does. It
seems really bright on my side of the screen. I mean, I know it's not. I mean, sometimes I keep it go a bit darker in here, but it seems really bright in here. There's nothing's changed, really.
Whatever it is, do that again, because I mean, this is like you got great lighting on my side.
Yeah, it looks good. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, man.
So we weren't here last week. John screwed us up, so we didn't do a show last week. I almost tried to screw us up again this week, but I wouldn't let him get away. We had to do a show the next day.
Yeah, man. It's Monday. For those of you listening later, it's Monday. We usually do this on Sunday.
Yeah, I know. It feels weird doing it on Monday, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm not sure what we're talking about this week. I know we're talking Bank, and we're definitely going to talk about Warner Brothers making that decision. And I'm actually, the story I was just posting or about to post on the site is another wrinkle in that. Warner Brothers deciding to release all of their 2021 films in theaters and HBOMax same time. It's a groundbreaking deal, and we should talk about what the kind of impact this is going to have on theaters.
Yeah, I mean, it could go a lot of different ways. So,
it could. We'll talk about that. Some other stuff too. I can't remember all the stories that I said.
Nomadland and the Prom we want to talk about for a second. Nomadland's probably one of our, I would say at this point, especially if you tuned into our Hillbilly Elegy episode, that puts Nomadland probably a surefire bet for awards this year.
Right.
You know,
and not Hillbilly Elegy.
Right, and yeah, so Hillbilly Elegy was one people thought were going to be there, and if you saw our reviews, it's probably not going to be. So so yeah, I mean it's Frances McDormand, so she's the female Daniel Day-Lewis when it comes to awards likelihood, right?
Yeah, pretty much, man. If she makes a movie, you got to consider that even if the movie itself doesn't earn awards, she's probably going to get nominated. In this case, Nomadland is definitely getting nominated. It is 100% going to be in the Best Picture race, and I think it could very well take it. That's the way I feel about it. But so we got a lot to talk about. So let's, again, you are luminescent on your side of the screen.
Yeah, I'm trying to so I'm trying to figure out what to do, because I went out, and it's funny you say that, because I actually went out and bought a ring light, just for that reason, because that one I was Casper the Friendly Ghost one week.
My roommate just bought one of those, actually.
Yeah, I went out and bought a ring light, but I think the issue is actually dual. I think I'm getting good light from that, but the light in this room I'm in, that's a fake light right there. This isn't a real background. You see, that's green screen. But
you're not really in.
I'm not really in a sophisticated library. That light up in the ceiling, I think, is whitewashing my face. Not what we usually mean when we talk about whitewashing in Hollywood. But yeah, my first bad joke's out of the way, so let's keep it moving.
I'm eating two at the same time.
Hey, man, those of us with misophonia, thank you.
I mean, I'm eating a ham sandwich, and it's one of those things where the ham was like the sell-by date is like
iffy. Like you're feeling it for slime and wondering if you're good or not. Yeah.
Right, and there's I was like, this is like just on the edge.
Yeah.
Of not being good, but it's good. If it's not, and basically I told my roommate, if it's not green, it's okay, right?
You're not gonna die. Yeah.
Basically, yeah, I'm not gonna die. I don't think I'm gonna die if I eat this.
Ham's not as bad as milk. We're way off our usual track, but what I've done to myself more times than I can count, I never check the date on milk because I usually go through it so quickly. But having a bowl of cereal, because you get the cereal taste, and you get 5 or 6 bites, and you're like, man, something's off. And then you look at the milk, and you're like, oh, this is expired, and I've been eating expired milk.
Well, see, that actually happened to me yesterday, which is why I was kind of, really eyeballing this stuff, was because I actually was trying to make myself a bowl of cereal, and when the milk came out in chunks, well, that told me that I probably shouldn't eat it.
Ugh,
Yeah, so I was like,
that's
okay,
oof.
so that was bad. That was
Yeah,
bad. Anyway, so last night I went to the Draft House, Alamo Draft House.
I saw that.
And I went to the drive-in, their drive-in theater that they have out in Ashburn.
Hmm.
First time I'd been there. First time I've been to a drive-in theater, honestly.
I've never been myself.
Yeah, and I went to see Elf, which is not a movie that I love exactly.
I could tell how badly you needed to go to a theater of some kind because you were
Yeah,
going to see Elf.
I wanted to go see Elf. I wanted to get out. I wanted to get out. Period. But
Hmm.
I wanted to go see a movie, and I went out there to see Elf, and I really enjoyed it. And I don't know if I'd seen it since maybe the year after it came out or something.
Was it 15 years
But
now?
it's pretty old. And when I was watching it, I was like, Jesus Christ, Jon Favreau directed this too. I mean,
It,
Jon Favreau, man, the amount of stuff that he's done that is going to live forever
it's
is insane. And honestly, Elf is probably the biggest movie he ever did. I
what do
mean,
you mean?
even now. And I mean, like, yeah, he's done stuff like he's done obviously stuff like The Lion King and The Jungle Book and The Mandalorian since then.
Iron
But
Man. I
Elf,
mean, he started the
I
MCU.
mean, yeah, and Iron Man, of course, he
Hmm.
started the MCU basically.
Hmm.
But Elf is going to live forever.
Now, why do you say that? That's curious to me. I know you always have really good reasons behind saying this stuff. I would go immediately to Iron Man, and the future will tell if
You
we'll go to
would
Mandalorian. But
Iron Man will never make the amount of money that Elf
so we
will
talking about
make.
from a box office point of view, or just
From Elf, in terms of like of a movie being the term I guess would be evergreen.
hmm oh,
Elf is
constantly
one
bringing
of
it
those.
in?
Elf is one of those movies that it gets renewed life every single year.
Hmm.
It is a classic in a way that Iron Man isn't a classic. Iron Man
Right,
is a fine movie. No one's saying it isn't.
right.
But Elf is a holiday classic that everyone loves, and generations upon generations from now, people will still be watching Elf. Like
Yeah,
how many years it's been since Elf already? It's been at least a decade, I mean, more longer than that, obviously, at least 15 years, like I said. And it is as beloved now as it was back then.
you know,
It's not going anywhere. It's that movie's going to be here forever. The same way like A Christmas Story is. A Christmas Story will be here generations upon generations from now.
right.
And only holiday movies can do that. Like
Yeah,
there's only certain kind of movies that can do that. There are very few movies that endear to people in that way. Yeah, we may like Iron Man, but Iron Man isn't that movie.
yeah.
Like families don't gather around to watch Iron Man.
And there's not a specific date or month every year that you're reminded to watch it. And Elf, I mean, I as usual, I agree with you once you come out with it because I noticed more and more Elf is going on the same track that National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation is going on. Like for a long time, it was like a cult classic. Like it was a holiday movie for sure. It wasn't a holiday classic. It wasn't there with Christmas Story or Miracle on 34th Street. In the last 10 years, it's really ramped up for some reason, and now you see Christmas Vacation stuff everywhere, and Elf's on the same track. I'm at Target and Walmart Christmas shopping over the weekend because I like to keep it classy, and I see Elf stuff everywhere. These little gifts, socks and just little bullshit left and right,
Yeah,
and it's just growing and growing. So yeah, I mean, who would
yeah.
have thought if you said in 1995, yeah, that skinny dude with the big head that's in Swingers, he's going to redefine Hollywood. Would you ever believe
No,
that?
it's insane. Yeah, it's insane to think how far he's come.
Oh.
That guy from PCU, man, he's the man. But yeah, it
PCU.
was the the drive-in was absolutely packed for Elf last night too, like
Yeah.
completely packed. I'm sure some of that's just people who were like me who wanted to get out, but people were there to see Elf,
Yeah.
and that was like I said, that movie is just gigantic, and it's just one of those things it's going to be there forever. It's crazy.
So real quick, paint the picture for us. People like me that have a very antiquated view of you getting some kind of thing to hang on your door that has a speaker. Obviously, it uses your car's radio, right? So
Yep.
the audio is going to depend on your car. But is the audio like? Is it the same as listening to a radio station? Is there any surround sound to it? What's that like?
I mean, it's like it's you tune into your FM station to a specific FM station, and it just comes in through your speakers in your car.
That's
So
pretty awesome.
yeah, no, it's pretty nice. I like I said, I'd never been to ones. I didn't know how all that stuff worked.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it was pretty sweet. And I'll
Mm-hmm.
definitely go back again. They show movies that I think almost every day. I'll definitely go back. I have a
Yeah.
whole holiday set, of course, and Elf was part of it, and A Christmas Story, and
We should do that next week. As a matter of fact, is talk about our holiday sets, because I know like Love Actually is the one that we have to kick off the holiday season with every
Love
year.
Actually is in there.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. So.
yeah, definitely. We should definitely do something like that.
Mhm.
No Die Hard. Not allowed to talk about Die Hard.
No. What about
Um,
Kiss Kiss Bang Bang? We gotta go Shane Black.
You mean basically any Shane Black because
Yes.
he's made like 6 movies written that have holiday themes to them.
Yeah.
I know because I just did The Last Boy Scout, which
Yeah.
is one.
Yeah. I was gonna
So,
say that
so I
Kiss
had to, I
Kiss
had to
Bang
I had to
Bang.
do some research on it, and I was like, he's done 6 movies talking about Christmas.
It was our
The Last
show.
Boy Scout is the weakest of them all. The only reference to Christmas is Satan Claus.
Satan.
He mentions Satan Claus gets mentioned twice in the movie. That's the only reason you know that it has anything to do with Christmas.
Right. It was our show 2 weeks ago that added Kiss Kiss Bang Bang to my list, because I never it's if you haven't seen it out there, guys, literally rent it tonight. Kiss Kiss Bang Bang. It's Robert Downey Jr. right before he got Iron Man. Amazing performance all around. It's a great noir story. I love that movie. But I never considered it a Christmas movie, even though it's got, the entire plot is kicked off by the search for a Christmas present. Until last week, when you said Shane Black. I was like, Shane Black, Kiss Kiss. I was like, I got to add that to my yearly list now. So.
Yep.
Um,
Yep.
So I guess it's a good time to start the show. 15 minutes in.
Yeah, I know. We actually start talking about whatever we were going to talk about.
Yeah, I mean, I guess we kick it right off with the big dog this week, Nomadland. Which I guess would you put Mank or Nomadland as the big dog this week?
If we're talking about movies that are going to be Oscar contenders, well, they both could be,
Mm-hmm.
honestly. I would say Nomadland is probably the top of the list. So I saw this back at Middleburg, so it's been almost 2 months since I watched it
Mm-hmm.
last, and I absolutely loved it. But I really want to get. I may have actually talked about it at some like that week on here
Mm-hmm.
as well about how much I liked it. So I want to get your opinion on what you thought of Nomadland, which stars Frances McDormand as a woman who lives as a modern day nomad. And if you don't know what that is, basically they are people who don't have set a set household. They're not homeless.
Mm-hmm.
They drive around in RVs and kind of uh, move from place to place and from job to job, and and you know, they live a nomadic lifestyle. That means they move around,
Yeah.
and it's not an easy life by any means, but there's also a certain amount of freedom to it as well, which is what I think a lot of these people pursue.
Yeah.
But what is it that you thought? What did you think about Nomadland? Which is directed by Chloe Zhao, by the way. Chloe Zhao, who did The Rider a couple years ago, got huge acclaim for that, and is doing Marvel's Eternals next year.
Well, I thought, the thing about this movie is, we talked a couple weeks about Hillbilly Elegy and how there hasn't been a definitive movie on the opioid crisis. Nomadland is a movie that is, at this point at least, I can't remember, unless you want to talk about The Big Short or something like that, which I don't think gives the common person's experience. It's a definitive movie at this point on the life of some people during the recession, the Great Recessions, which I was trying to think if there were any movies that really dealt with it in this way before. But as you watch the movie, as you see that this isn't necessarily, and this is why Frances McDormand is so, I can't put a pin on why she's so awesome. It might be because you can't figure out why she's so awesome, that she's awesome.
She's just so natural, man.
That's it. She's,
Just natural.
when you can't tell somebody's acting, that's the best acting. And her, me expecting watching a movie about a woman that loses everything because of the recession. I'm expecting somebody that hates life, that hates everything. And, there's a feeling of that, but also it's not, the freeing aspect that you mentioned earlier is what I thought was the most interesting thing to me, because right now in the world, we are all so swamped with material possessions and things and needs and keeping up with the Joneses. The idea of not having that seems like hell on earth, but the freedom gained from not having to worry about any of that, from living life by your own rules, and that's what really drew me into this movie. And as always, it's Frances McDormand. Her role as Fern is what sells that and really makes you believe it. So it's not the movie I was expecting about a recession, but it is a movie that I needed to see about a recession. It really puts in perspective how we live our lives, even if we haven't
Yeah.
been affected.
No, absolutely. I agree with you. And she basically lived the life of a nomad during the entire time of this filming.
Hmm.
And it's fantastic the amount of access they get. Virtually all of the cast, with the exception of David Strathairn, who's an Oscar-nominated actor in his own right.
Hmm.
Everybody else in here is an actual nomad. In fact, some of them were there at Middleburg for the movie. They are nomads who live that life, and she lived that life with them during the time of this film. So we see her. One of the things I was amazed by was the access they got into the Amazon warehouses,
Hmm.
where all these seasonal workers come in. These nomads, they come in and they do the work for a couple weeks, and they move on to another place.
Yeah.
They move on to another place, another Amazon facility, maybe. Amazon has these things, and I always see ads for those things too, for those Amazon programs, where they just
Right.
invite you to come in and work on the floor and all this kind of stuff, and you don't really think about it. You see the commercials for Amazon, and you don't think about the fact that maybe 70 to 90% of the workforce there are seasonal employees. They're nomads who are just traveling around from place to place looking for a couple of paychecks to get by. You know what I mean? And
That's the
it's
definition that changed for me. Seasonal
crazy.
worker to me was always somebody picking up an extra job for the holiday. That's always what I thought.
Right.
But
Yeah.
you realize that this is something that's out there, and it's not it's not a 0.001% of the population. There are people,
Yeah.
and the documentary feel to it is what really sold everything. I must have missed it somewhere that the most of the cast was actually lived that lifestyle in real life, but that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
It's
Very
sold so
authentic
real.
film all the way throughout, like all the way
Right.
through. It really
Hmm.
is. But I also agree with you about the way it makes you think about the way we live our lives, and it kind of redefines what freedom is in a way.
Hmm.
That word gets thrown around a lot, and of course, freedom means different things to everybody. For these people, it is a sense of being able to live your own life on your own terms and however and wherever you want. It's not about for other people having freedom means having all these possessions, being able
Right.
to have them. It just means different things. And I wonder if a movie like this, because we've seen movies like this, happens things like this happen before. But I wonder if this is a kind of movie that will inspire people to consider the nomad lifestyle. We are in the midst of a drastic downturn in our economy right now. Something that is on par with the recession, the 2008 recession that Fern experiences in this movie, where people are losing everything right now.
With the
Um,
tragedy of people
I,
dying on top of it.
right, but I also wonder if the fact that there is a pandemic going on is like the thing that is preventing people from doing it. They want to stay in, so they're not thinking about that right now. But I wonder when this is all over, and it's going to take a long time to recover, if we don't start seeing more people subscribe to this lifestyle. I have a feeling that we will. Um,
Yeah, I mean, I think we are on the verge of a revolution in this country, but I don't think that means what people think it means. People hear the word revolution, they think French Revolution, hanging the politicians in the streets and all that, but it can just mean a mass migration of lifestyle. People changing what really matters. And this, I will admit, this movie kind of hit close to me. And this, probably not something to put publicly, but um, you know, I just am changing jobs right now, and I was in a very toxic day job work environment where it I felt constantly like imprisoned by having to take shit from somebody that I shouldn't be taking shit from because I needed to provide for my family, because I need to get the TV and the cable and the Netflix and the nice house and the car and all that. And I know I'm not the only one dealing with that. A lot of American deals, even if you have a good work environment, you feel imprisoned by the bills you have to pay, and so it's not a stretch to see people watch this movie, become inspired, and think to try it out.
yeah, yeah. But as we see in this film, it is not hard. It is not easy. And one of the things that got me about it was how tenuous every single day is. Every single
Nothing's
day.
nothing's great
You
given.
don't know
Hmm.
what's going to happen every single day, and it could be something really minor that that puts you in danger. Whether it's like your RV breaks down. If your RV breaks down, you're screwed. Like
Mm-hmm.
that's it. So because you're basically you're not. There are no like savings reserves when you're living this lifestyle. There's nothing
Yep.
like that. There's no cushion. So if you get a flat tire, that could be the end of your trip. That could be the end of everything. Your car breaks down. That's it. You get stuck in the mud. That's it. You miss a job. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
You got no food. Yeah, there's no
yeah, you got
backup
nothing,
plan.
and you're relying on the kindness of people in your community. But at the same time, I mean, they're fending for themselves too. It is. That was the thing that struck me the most about it was just how shaky every single day was. Yeah, there's freedom out there, and it's great, and it's freeing, and hell, it got me too. It made me thinking like, man, I kind of wish I could live this kind of life.
Mm-hmm.
But then you see what they go through on a day-to-day basis, where nothing is certain,
Yeah.
and I don't know if I can handle that. It takes a
Yeah.
special kind of person.
It certainly wasn't a glorification of the life. What it did do though, almost in subtext, is point out something that this country and the world has been dealing with on a constant basis since 9/11, and that is there's a trade-off that has to happen. You either have freedom or security. You can't have total security or total freedom.
Right.
And that's what happens. And that can be security of not getting blown up, security of not getting shot going to school, or security of knowing where your next meal is going to come from. And, a lot of us take for granted, not even, not many people have a big savings nowadays, but we take for granted that, we might have a credit card with $5 available.
Most people can't afford to miss one check.
Right.
That's
but
the way life is right now.
But they're getting those checks, like to not know that check is coming, and to not have, even if you lose a check, you would usually have a month or so before you get evicted, or you could, you have some canned beans in the cabinet that you could eat. I mean, these people really, it's like living in the Old West with an RV. That's what I was thinking of the whole time. We're just going back to, the Great Expansion, the Oregon Trail, dying of dysentery.
It's like the video game Oregon Trail.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So it sounds like we're both on board with Nomadland. It's not.
Yeah, it's just a tremendous film, man. Chloe Zhao, just a terrific director. She brings this sensitivity to every single movie that she makes, and this is another one. I expect this is, like I said, I think this is the front runner for Best Picture. There are some other contenders out there for sure, but from Minari to One Night in Miami to some others, but yeah, this is going to be really high on the list for sure.
The parallels to how things are going right now, I think, are going to put it over the edge and definitely give it the win.
Sure. You're right about that. Timing.
What do you think? I'll do a happier question here. What do you think of James Corden? Where are you on the James Corden scale? This is the response I was looking for too.
Yeah, it's all right. So James Corden, my first introduction to James Corden was Year One Middleburg. He was in a movie called, I think, One Chance or something like that. And I had never seen him before, never heard of him. And he was just this, big guy who performs and sings and dances. And I'd never heard of him before. And I thought he was charming. And I still do. I think there's something genuine about him. That he seems to like really love what he does. And I think that can be infectious. But it can also be a lot. And he can be exhausting. Right. He can be exhausting.
So we are on the exact same page.
I kind of found him exhausting in Prom.
Prom.
A movie that I think is actually pretty good. I had a lot of fun with it, and I tweeted afterwards that I think I might have just been in the right kind of mood for this movie.
It happens.
There haven't been that many of them.
Right.
With a cast like this, Corden, Meryl Streep, Nicole Kidman, Andrew Reynolds, Keegan-Michael Key, who I really liked in this.
Ryan Murphy behind everything.
Well, Ryan Murphy is my issue. He usually is.
Not a fan. That kind of went the other way, but
usually my issue. This is the first movie he's directed since Eat, Pray, Love, so it's been a long time.
Wow.
He's been doing a lot. Yeah, he's been doing a lot of TV, of course. A lot of TV. I just find his style of direction to be too chaotic. Like he can't stay on a frame for a second. There's something disingenuous about a lot of stuff that he does, and that goes whether it's Glee or The Politician, which is a show that I've watched both seasons of, and the second season I hate watched it. And it's just something about him that I don't like about the way he directs and the way he makes his programming.
There's no sophistication to his directing style, I think is what I mean. There's very
Something.
standard, dry, quick
doesn't
cuts.
work for me. Something doesn't work for me when
Right.
it comes to him. But overall, I did enjoy this movie just because I was able to look beyond like its technical issues and just appreciate the big performances.
Mhm.
Like I was able to appreciate Meryl Streep and her big diva personality that she has in this movie. And she plays an arrogant character, Broadway star who, along with the three others, Corden being the other, another Broadway star, and Nicole Kidman being a eternal chorus singer who wants to be Roxy Hart in Chicago but never gets there. Andrew Reynolds as
Mhm.
kind of an actor but not on their level. And they're all conceited, all self-centered. And
Oh yeah.
in order to change their public persona, they decided to take on the cause of a girl who wants to bring her girlfriend to prom.
Mhm.
But the PTA decided to just cancel prom rather than have a gay girl go there, which is
Not a stretch, unfortunately.
no, it's not. And this actually story is based on something true that happened.
Right.
So yeah, but I was able to look beyond the issues I had with Ryan Murphy for the most part and appreciate how fun some of these performances were,
Mhm.
and how it was seeing these big stars do a lot of razzle dazzle. I think that's a lot of fun.
It was
And
very
if I could look
throwback.
at it solely on that level, then yeah,
Mhm.
it's worth watching. If I start picking at it and start and start picking at how the movie is kind of doing exactly the same thing as the characters inside it are doing,
Mhm.
like it's big and showy and false, just like a lot of those like the entertainers are in the movie.
But that's okay. That's okay sometimes. That's okay sometimes, I think.
I could pick apart the fact that Keegan-Michael Key's character he's a great character and he's great in the movie, by the way. And if you ever thought that you'd see Keegan-Michael Key make out with Meryl Streep, no, you probably never did think that, but you get to see that a little
It
bit.
was on my bucket list, to be honest with
Yeah,
you.
never thought that would happen. But his
Yeah.
character is basically there to
Jordan
save.
Peele and Bette Midler was the other one on my bucket list, so I'm still
Yeah,
waiting on that one.
yeah. So his character is basically there. He's intelligent, is a school principal, good guy, who's there to save this white woman from herself.
Mhm.
And I've seen that narrative too much. It's annoying. If I can get annoyed by that aspect of the movie too. There's a whole lot of little things I can get annoyed with this movie, and I mentioned them all in my review, but I had to put them all aside and just enjoy the numbers, the musical numbers, and the people doing them, who
Yeah.
all legitimately seemed like they were having a good time doing it.
And that's it. That's the key. This I didn't go into it with much sincerity, I guess might be the word, but I had a lot of
I'm sure
fun.
you had no expectations for this movie.
Yeah, not really. I mean, honestly, I expected it to be something like Disney's Prom. Just from what I saw, and it's much better movie than that. Kerry Washington, obviously, I know we always say I'm a misogynist, and she is an absolutely stunning woman, and she is super talented too. I don't think she works enough, to be honest with you. I know she works a lot, but I don't think she works enough. I don't think it can be left out that the main character's last name was an excellent choice. Nolan,
What
same
was
as
it?
mine. Nolan.
Oh.
But this was a very, very fun type of movie. It's not exactly lighthearted because there are some serious things it deals with, but the colors, you talk about Ryan Murphy, and I can see what you're talking about with his directing style. But visually, the movie, in its big numbers, you can probably see in the trailer that's playing up there, when the big numbers hit, they're very colorful, very showy, very 42nd Street feeling. And it feels more sophisticated than a Disney musical about prom. And that's kind of what I was trying to say earlier. But it doesn't take itself too seriously at any point. So I had a lot of fun with it. It's not something you're going to remember for a long time. And I think if you're either if you're against Christmas or if you're Christmas movied out and you just want to watch a fun family movie, I think this is a good one for you.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think with with Broadway, the lights are down in Broadway right now. This is probably about
Hmm.
as close as you're gonna get to a Broadway show right now, unless you want to go back and rewatch Hamilton for the 100th time.
I'll tell you,
But yeah,
I never thought I'd say I'm done with Hamilton for a while. What I didn't expect when it came out on Disney Plus is I knew I would like it. I've always been a theater geek, but my wife and kids, I should have known that because Angela's a real history buff. My wife and kids got into it big time. We were playing the Hamilton soundtrack literally anytime we were in the car as a family, anytime we were
yeah,
making breakfast on the weekend. I know every word by heart, and I'm good with it for a little while. So I'm gonna hang out on Hamilton for a bit. But yeah, so Mank, which you talked about a bit last week, actually. But it's a Netflix movie. David Fincher. I for one.
written by his father, his late father.
Oh, was it really? I must have missed that
Yeah,
part.
Jack Fincher. He wrote it years ago.
Well, yeah, and that makes sense. So one of my favorite subgenre. Oops, I leaned into my green screen, showed everybody a peek behind the curtain. One of my favorite subgenres of movies has always been fictional behind the scenes of Hollywood movies. L.A.
You should be pretty
Confidential is not
happy right
really
now
it.
because that's all they seem to be doing.
Yeah.
I wrote a thing about that actually because they're doing that's their new way of continuing franchises now. Rather than remakes and sequels and reboots,
Hmm.
they're just doing, well, let's just do something on the making of this. So
Well, the
they're doing
fictional part is the important part. So like behind this, Hail Caesar, for instance, something like that.
well, okay,
Or
but yeah, but this isn't fictional.
I know it's not fictional,
This isn't
but
fictional. And the movie that they're making about the making of The Godfather, they're
Ci-
doing that. They're doing
oh,
one. They're
I
doing one on. They're doing one on Chinatown as well with Ben
I meant
Affleck.
dramatized.
This is
Dramatized is the word I was looking
this
for.
is
I'm
this is
stupid.
the thing that they're doing now. This keeps these old
Hmm.
properties alive without having to, because you can't remake Citizen Kane, right? Like, or at least you shouldn't.
Hmm.
You can't remake The Godfather, or at least you shouldn't. You can't remake Chinatown, or at least you shouldn't. Although I think it might have actually done that, but you shouldn't. But you shouldn't.
Right.
So this is the way you keep those things alive, by just talking about the people and the events surrounding them.
So yeah, so dramatized, not fictionalized, is the word I was looking for.
Okay,
What do you think of Citizen Kane, and not on a technical level, as a narrative movie? What was your thoughts on Citizen Kane?
it's fine.
That's me too. I mean, I get it, double focus.
I'll be
You know,
honest, I'm not the guy to go to for if you want me to revere a lot of these older films. I don't most of the time. I think most of them are fine for what they were. I don't like Casablanca. I don't like
mhm.
Gone with the Wind. I think those movies suck. Citizen
Yeah,
Kane is a very good film. I don't love it the way other people do. Um, I can understand why the story around it is probably more interesting to me
right.
than because the people around it are fascinating. Um, from
Hmm.
William Randolph Hearst to Marion Davies,
Orson Welles.
Orson Welles. These people who are all associated with it are more
Hmm.
interesting to me than the movie itself.
Yeah. So 1929 to 1950 in Hollywood was just a crazy. It set all the stereotypes that we know about Hollywood, from the casting couch to the director with the funny pants, to the power tripping studio heads. Um, and I guess I knew this is, even though I made the faux pas there earlier into the wrong thing, I knew this was a real story about Citizen Kane. But going into it, I don't know what I was expecting. I know this is a really good movie. I know the performances were great. Gary Oldman, I always love. Um, but I think my expectations were in the wrong place, and that's why probably I didn't have as good a time with it as I should have.
You didn't like it? Is that what you're saying?
It's not that I didn't like it. I expected to like it a lot more for what it is. I
What do you think of Gary Oldman as Mank? Because he could be up for Best Actor.
I think he's awesome. I mean, I think he's the only person in Hollywood that can chew up the scene and go overboard, but also stay subtle, depending on the character, depending on what's needed. And Best. I'll have to see the rest of what's out there to see best actor. I don't think this was his best performance ever, but I could see if there's not a lot of competition.
That's obviously The Professional. We already know that.
I was going to say Fifth Element, but I'll go with Professional as well.
I felt like because Mank kind of divides itself up into two halves or two stories. The present day one where Mank is like on his not a resort, but his place where he's kind of recovering from injury, and he's struggling to write the movie that he's been pressed into writing in a limited amount of time. He's under pressure from Orson Welles and all that kind of stuff. That part didn't work for me as well as when they flash back to everything that leads up to that and see his interactions with Hearst and these studio bigwigs, and he's sort of this journeyman writer, who's trying to navigate the changing tides of Hollywood, because Hollywood was undergoing a lot of changes at the time. And you had a lot of civil unrest in the country. You had a lot of political unrest in California in particular. And Mank is this big, bold personality who had never yet to make his mark. And he was constantly trying to do that. And this was his opportunity to do that. And the funny thing about it is when he got that opportunity, he kind of used it as a tool for revenge. Citizen Kane is a movie that a lot of people believe is about William Randolph Hearst and his various quirks and demons and infidelities. And
I mean, how could you not? I mean, that's like if I made a movie about a president that runs his mouth too much and is an idiot, who's going to be about.
It's also a biting the hand that feeds you sort of thing. So he's got this whole self-destructive thing that's going on with him too. It makes him an interesting character. You see him at parties where he's got people naturally are like attracted to him as a personality. But he's also somebody that people can't stand to have around for that very reason. Once he gets the attention, he doesn't let it go, and he takes it wherever he wants to go. He's a really interesting character, in a sea of interesting characters, and that stuff really worked for me in terms of watching him kind of navigate this volatile time period in Hollywood. That's the part of Mank that really works for me. And I have some issues with the other portion of the movie, but even that stuff isn't bad. It's just different. It's just different. I like Amanda Seyfried as Marion Davies, although I will forever lay on the altar of Kirsten Dunst as Marion Davies in the Cat's Meow. Cat's Meow is peak Kirsten Dunst. That was like the movie where I was like, all y'all who say she can't act, y'all need to shut up. I love her in this movie. But Amanda Seyfried is very good as well. And there's a lot of really strong performances throughout. I really like Tom Burke as Orson Welles as well. So
what about now William Randolph Hearst? That his inclusion, and I guess you couldn't have this movie without including him. But getting to see a portrayal of him on screen, I may have missed a lot of stuff about him, but I haven't seen that much about the Hearst dynasty from William Randolph Hearst right down to Patty Hearst.
Cat's Meow.
Is the Cat's Meow about Hearst? Okay.
Hearst is on the Cat's Meow is about William Randolph Hearst. It's William Randolph Hearst and Marion Davies. So you get more of their relationship in that movie than you do in this one.
Right.
It's the same dynamic. He's this big, powerful studio bigwig, and she's this actress that everybody sees as funny, but you don't necessarily see her as an actress. It's kind of the thing she's always trying to break through.
Right.
But the Cat's Meow also deals with her relationship with Charlie Chaplin. Charlie Chaplin is on the boat as well. The Cat's Meow boat. It's the night of Thomas Ince's murder as another actor, Tom Ince.
Okay.
But it's a really good movie, and you get this whole. I kind of wish they could have worked Mank into that story somehow, but they don't. But it's Hearst and Davies and Charlie Chaplin and a whole bunch of other actors. They're played by Kirsten Dunst. Eddie Izzard is Charlie Chaplin, and the guy who played the father on Gilmore Girls is William Randolph Hearst. I think it's Edward Herman, maybe. I can't remember.
Never saw Gilmore Girls.
But,
well, Charles Dance.
Gilmore Girls.
I know.
Gilmore Girls
You know more about Supernatural than you're leading on because you know that he's in that.
With Alison Bledel.
Oh, that.
I
thought you were talking about Jared Bledel. Yeah.
And the other chick who's hot. Her plays her mom.
Her mom is, I think, even hotter than she is.
I don't know about that. It's
I don't know. I just never made it around to it.
It's hard to get past Alison Bledel's baby blues, man.
They are stunning. But it's hard to see that the filmmakers wanted to portray Hearst in any other light when you cast Charles Dance, who plays him. I don't think we've seen him in anything major since Game of Thrones that I can think of. But I love seeing him out there. I just think this doesn't have anything to do with this movie, but I want to see a movie about the Hearst dynasty. You go from William Randolph, his come up, and then you go into was it Patty, the one that was in a terrorist
Patty,
or whatever?
Patty is in there, yeah.
Patty Hearst, and then they're still around today, albeit to a much lower, like Lydia Hearst, who's an actress still to this day. But it was not exactly what I was expecting, but I always love seeing this era in Hollywood, and I think it did justice to portraying the darker side, not necessarily the darker side, but the more shady side, I guess I would say. It's not LA Confidential style, dark side, but it was definitely good.
Okay.
So, speaking of things that are good, I'm sure we got some other movies to talk about, but we're up at almost 12:50. So we missed last week, as we brought up at the beginning of the show, which means we didn't get a chance to talk about one Rosario Dawson making her debut as Ahsoka Tano. And then this week, we had another, in an episode titled The Tragedy, we had another two major episodes in a row of The Mandalorian. Where do we start?
I don't even know, man. I mean, there's so much to talk about with these two episodes. I don't know if we can even begin to do either one of them justice. They're both amazing. And I think the thing that struck me about both episodes is how cinematic they both were. Like, they both felt like movies, which is interesting because this most recent one was only like 30 minutes long. It was really short.
Yeah. I don't know what's going on with that inconsistency in runtime, but yeah.
Yeah, this one's really short. But the thing is though, and I because I do the recaps on these things now. Thank God there's only like 2 or 3 episodes left because I forget how much I hate doing those. The thing that struck me about this week's episode, which introduced Tamira Morrison as Boba Fett. So Boba Fett is back.
Confirmed, because we saw him in the first episode for a second.
Ming-Na Wen returned as Fennec Shand, which
Thank God.
It's funny. When she got rescued in season 1, everybody jumped to the conclusion that was Boba Fett who rescued her, and then everybody turned out to be right. This week's episode may have been short, but I think there was more packed into this episode than just about any other episode. There is a lot that happens in this episode.
There is not one wasted second.
No, there isn't. And the thing is, about half of it is one fight. And still they managed to get so much packed in there. And I'm like, that is an incredibly economical episode this one was. By Robert Rodriguez and who directed this one. And Jon Favreau. Incredible stuff all throughout. Incredible. I was blown away by this episode and the last one with Rosario Dawson as Ahsoka. I can't believe how perfect she turned out to be.
Amazing.
I know we all had high expectations for her as Ahsoka Tano.
She shattered them in the first 30 seconds. I mean, you talk about cinematic, and that's the perfect word. The opening of the episode titled The Jedi, where she debuts, I mean, almost puts the Jedi as like the monster in a creature movie, where you have this foggy, barren, wooded landscape, and you see lightsabers come out and go away, and then in the Jedi they leaned hard into the Western, and it was really neat because they kind of, everybody knows that Westerns were greatly influenced by Asian movies of the 40s, 50s, Kurosawa and all that.
Japanese samurai movies for the most part.
Yeah, and so was Star Wars. And the cool thing about this is they leaned into both of those things very well. You get you get a full-on high noon shootout between.
We got Michael Biehn in that episode.
Almost unrecognizable. That kind of made me sad a little bit. He's definitely gotten a little bit older. But yeah, and then the next episode you don't get to breathe. You go right to Boba Fett.
Yeah, right into Boba Fett is.
And this was for Boba Fett what the end of Rogue One was for Darth Vader, if you ask me. I mean, he was always over glorified, what's the word I'm looking for? He was blown out of proportion by everybody because we never saw him do anything. We saw him fall in the Sarlacc pit and take Han Solo, who was already trapped, and then a couple other little things here and there. But we never, other than looking really cool, we never saw why he was so feared in the movies and TVs. And now we know this was his Darth Vader Rogue One moment.
Yeah, I was fascinated by the conversation that Din Djarin, the Mandalorian Mando, had with Boba Fett.
Mm-hmm.
I was fascinated by it, and I'm fascinated by all these conversations that Mandalorians have with one another, because they all come from so many different backgrounds, and there are so many divisions between them, that their conversations always start off like a little bit tenuous, and then aggressive,
Mm-hmm.
and then they work something out.
Yeah.
There's some sort of acknowledgement, and it was like that for this one. But this conversation was interesting because it got me thinking. It's like, so he can't give. So Mando doesn't want to give him the armor that he got from Cobb Vanth. Going stretching back to episode 1, so he can't give him the armor. Doesn't think he's a true Mandalorian. Doesn't think he's a Mandalorian at all.
Mm-hmm.
And basically, Boba Fett. I mean, he says this. He just comes out and says it. He's like, I'm on my own. I'm for myself. Mm-hmm. He's not really a Mandalorian.
No.
His father was.
We think.
He's a clone of his father.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't make him automatically a Mandalorian. He's a clone.
Yeah, you know what?
And so he doesn't automatically. He's not automatically jumped into the gang because his father was a Mandalorian.
He is, if you look at it.
He's a clone. His situation is so different, and it makes you look at him and all of his appearances before the appearances that we know him from, that we grew up knowing him. We should look at him in a completely different way.
Yeah. I mean, he's got a lot added, but what brings that all together for me is I just look at the Mandalorians as religion. Din Djarin talking to everybody. It's like different. It's like a Baptist talking to a Catholic. It's like a Sikh talking to a Shiite. Right. And it's all sects of Christianity or Islam or whatever. And
right.
So
whereas if you look at him from the outside, like somebody like me, you just look at him and you're like, you think they're all the same.
Yeah. What's the difference? But more to your point, also, I mean, how many people are a certain faith because their parents were? And that's what I saw with Boba Fett, seeing that he's a Mandalorian, even with the cloning and all that. When I was 10, I certainly didn't have enough knowledge to call myself anything religion-wise, but I was Catholic because my parents were Catholic. And that's kind of how I looked at it. But I think Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau, we opened up the episode talking about Jon Favreau. He kicked off the MCU, and there are so many people rejoicing for him right now. He is so tactfully, effectively, and perfectly bringing in EU elements that were cut off, killed, things that people always suspected, like Boba Fett escaped the Sarlacc pit. He's doing all these things so perfectly. It makes me scared when the other shoe's going to drop and he messes something up, to be honest with you. But, I mean, with Ahsoka and Boba...
It's not going to stay perfect forever. And you know what, though? It's not even that. If that happens, it's probably not even going to be that it's something bad. It's just going to be different than what you remember. Right.
So
I expect that will happen with... Well, no, maybe not. It won't happen with Thrawn, because Thrawn has already been introduced into this canon already through Rebels.
Right.
Probably with Thrawn, but Thrawn is probably going to show up in the Mandalorian now too. I mean.
Oh yeah, or a spinoff, but
they're leading up to Ezra Bridger showing up at some point, right? I feel like that has to happen at some point. Ezra Bridger will show up. But
Sabine first, and then Ezra.
There's talk of the Mandalorian possibly taking place like before the end of Rebels, which is interesting.
I need a freaking timeline on my wall here, because I forget. Rebels is post-Empire.
Man, you're going to have to...
Yeah.
I'm like you. I get all these things mixed up until I see them in front of me.
Yeah. So. Well, Boba went... Well, I'm not even going to try to figure it out, because we have ate up a ton of time. Suffice to say, Mandalorian is awesome. We got a really big thing that we have to fit in, and that's this HBO Max Warner Brothers thing that could potentially be the opening volley in a war that ends theaters. I don't think that'll be it. HBO Max has announced that all of Warner Brothers' 2021 slate will be released simultaneously in theaters and on HBO Max for free, no additional charges. If you have an HBO Max subscription, you get it, which is a big note of it. But I think this just brings us on closer to the day when theaters have to adapt or survive. The theaters are doing things like Alamo, like you did this past weekend. Theaters are never going to go away, but they're going to need to change. You're not going to have 100 multiplexes. You're not going to have 13 theaters in your town. You're going to have one or two theaters that show the movies, but also provide dinner. They provide a better experience. They give you something more. As my thought. Where are you at on it?
Yeah, we're reaching that point. All of this is it's going to really depend on how things go once we get a vaccine and all this sorts of stuff, and maybe people start feeling comfortable again.
Yeah.
But I do feel like this sort of thing that once you go down this route, there's no kind of rewinding the clock.
It's Pandora's box, yeah, in a way.
Yeah, I feel like we're going to see how it all plays out in 2021, obviously, because Warner Media has, I think, 17 big movies coming out next year.
Mm-hmm.
And if you think about the movies that are on that list of things that they're releasing on HBO Max too, it's like Godzilla versus Kong and Dune, and like these are major films. The Matrix 4. The Matrix 4 is going to be on HBO Max.
This isn't the January slate of throwaway movies that they're putting on there. This is a gangbusters play by HBO Max to get Netflix type style subscription numbers, and I don't see how they don't. Everybody is going to want to have this. The only hurdle they have right now,
1984, which is coming out on Christmas Day.
Yeah, and that's I wouldn't be surprised if they see their numbers but they need to keep doing that. That's the thing. It can't be a one-time thing because then people just sign up and cancel. But the only hurdle that I've seen, and it still kind of baffles me, are you a Roku, Apple, or Amazon Fire guy?
Why do I watch everything through my Xbox One?
Okay,
but and I have Hulu also.
Mm-hmm.
My roommate has Amazon Fire Stick.
So your roommate would know. HBO Max premiered in July? It just became available on Fire Stick 2 weeks ago. It was only I have Roku, Apple TV, and Fire in my house just because I'm very jump around about what I like. The only thing I had HBO Max on for a long time was a Samsung TV. Roku still doesn't have HBO Max. So, it's all licensing, and that's going to be even more important in those talks now. But it's surprising me that they're doing this before they've gotten their platform on a steady ground.
Well, the full deal is that the movies will be day and date in theaters and HBO Max. It'll be on HBO Max just for 30 days,
mm-hmm.
and then it'll be exclusively in theaters.
Mm-hmm.
And then when that is over, when that theatrical window is over, it'll go back to digital, which will be HBO Max, but probably other digital outlets as well.
Mm-hmm.
So it will eventually get there to the other digital outlets, but at least it seems that way. But yeah, this is a game changer, obviously. And one of the things I was just posting about was Legendary is probably going to file a lawsuit about this because Godzilla versus Kong and Dune they co-produced those films,
mm-hmm.
Legendary, and they would say they were not asked about this at all. Mm-hmm. They weren't asked about this going to HBO Max thing. Now, do I think that they're going to pull those movies off of HBO Max? No,
mm-hmm.
I don't, because I don't think Warner Brothers would have announced them if they didn't already have a 100% guarantee that they could do it.
Yeah, they just want their cut to improve.
Legendary might whine about it. They might even strike a new deal, what I expect will probably happen. They'll
mm-hmm.
strike a new deal that makes everybody happy. But those movies will be on there. So, yeah, it's crazy. Like I said, the genie's out of the bottle. If this goes well for Warner Brothers next year,
mm-hmm.
Expect to see other companies do it. I expect Disney would be next because Disney is already leaning in that direction anyway.
Yeah, and they got a PR battle to fight because HBO Max like kind of screwed them a little bit by saying, oh, we're not going to charge you that extra money. So now Disney looks like the asshole. So, all right.
Crazy.
I know you got some
time, so
big stuff to do this afternoon that people can find on the site a little bit later on. That site, by the way, let me just switch over to our informational panel. PunchDrunkCritics.com, www.punchdrunkcritics.com is a website you can check out every single day there for all the news, comments, reviews, trailers, everything. On Twitter, the site Twitter handle is @PDCMovies. Travis is @PunchyCritic, and I am @PunchDrunkJohn. On Twitch, say it before, I'll say it again. If you're not following Travis on Twitch, make sure to subscribe to @cinematic_enforcer.
You haven't had anything to subscribe to for the last month, so.
Doesn't mean you shouldn't do it. Doesn't mean you shouldn't be ready, because that way you'll know exactly when he streams again. And
hopefully
boom.
soon.
Yeah.
Hopefully soon. I actually get some messages from people who miss my wrestling recaps on there. So,
yeah. So @cinematic_enforcer is Travis on Twitch. And if you have any tips, questions, if you want to try your hand at writing, we're always looking for talented writers. If you have a news story or anything you want to let us know.
We need one more new writer. We need one more.
Yeah, or if you just want to chat, tell us what we can do better. info@punchdrunkcritics.com. So until next week, guys, thanks a lot. We've been the Punch Drunk Critics, and we are out of here.
Later.